Okay, I think we can get started with today's presentation. So today we are going to talk about Penn State's Master of Public Policy program in our School of Public Policy. We're going to talk to you about what a Master of Public Policy is, why it might be a good fit for you, and the benefits of Penn State. So to get started, we'll start the day off with some introductions. My name is Stephen Maslowski. I'm the Director of Advising and Enrollment for the School of Public Policy. Joining us today to help with the presentation, we have two current MPP students. We have Rebecca LaBelle, who is going to be graduating here very shortly. Please say hello, Rebecca.
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
And we also have a first-year student who's going through the program right now, Cheyenne Mack, who will also be assisting today. Say hello, Cheyenne.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming.
So we will be going through the whole program today and talking to all of you about different things to keep in mind as you consider the MPP program. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to submit them either via the Q&A or the chat. So today's webinar, we're going to cover a couple different topics. We're going to do a program overview. We're going to talk about who should apply to the program, what the curriculum and the policy specializations look like within the program, career options that you have post-graduation, potential income expectations for those who have a Master of Public Policy and are in the professional workforce, and of course, our application process. So we're going to go through all of those today and answer any questions that you have. So what exactly is a Master of Public Policy? It is a professional master's degree that is designed to provide students with professional training to go into careers in public policy. I know, a very generalized response there for what it is. It's a great degree, I like to say, for students who are interested in having a flexible career, the ability to move around and do a lot of different things throughout your multi-decade professional career. I think it's also a great degree program and a great career option for people that are interested in solving complex problems, and those that are looking for a career that allows them to impact change. All of those things make up what careers in public policy look like and encompass the kind of education that you'll get as part of a professional policy degree. So with all of that in mind, I'd like to ask Cheyenne what made her decide to choose this MPP degree, and specifically to choose a career in public policy.
Thanks for asking me. I know that when I was in undergrad, I knew I wanted to make a change. I knew I wanted to help others. I just wasn't sure what the right direction for me was going to be. And the more I learned about this program, especially as Stephen will get into the flexibility of it and the different options within it, I knew that it would have given me an opportunity to learn more about the structure of policy itself and have a concrete background and be able to apply it in a multitude of different ways in various different types of policy. So having that option, as well as knowing that no matter where I go after, whether I work in nonprofit, in government, in different private sectors, I'll have the foundational groundwork and to be able to, as you said, solve complex problems, but also be able to create change and be able to help people, whether it's locally here in Pennsylvania or at a national level.
Thank you very much, Cheyenne. Great answer, great response, greatly appreciate it. So as we move on, here's kind of an overview of what the program encompasses. So you have the professional training aspect of it. The core curriculum is where you're going to get the majority of that training, and we'll kind of go through what the core curriculum looks like here in a little bit. Because it is a professional degree program, students are required to do an internship and an applied capstone project as part of their time in the program to enhance their professional skill sets and also provide them with more things to present to potential employers when they leave the program. We'll also talk about the different resources that exist in regards to internship, capstone, and career placement as part of the School of Public Policy. The degree itself is 43 total credits, 42 if you are a working professional with multiple years of professional work experience. So what does the curriculum look like in the program? So for the average student that comes into the Master of Public Policy program, year one curriculum is outlined here. As you can see, it is very, very heavy on the core policy curriculum. The majority of our students complete all of their core policy curriculum in year one, taking 4 courses in each semester. So as you can see, you'll get courses in statistics for public policy 1 and 2, policy process, economic analysis, managing public organizations, public finance and budgeting, policy analysis, and program evaluation, all usually completed in year one. And the main reason behind that is we want our students to have as much professional training and to develop their professional skill sets as much as possible before they go on to their internship, which takes place in between the summers of year one and year two. So students complete this curriculum in year one, and then you will move on to your internship. And then when students come back in year two, this is where students have the ability to specialize in a specific area of public policy, which we'll kind of break down the specializations here in a moment, and talk a little bit more about how students go about selecting them. But essentially, year two is all of your elective coursework. Students take 4 elective classes in a specific concentration of public policy, along with a general policy elective that is taught by our faculty. Once again, your final semester, you do an applied capstone project. So specializations. The specializations that we currently have, you can see listed on this slide. As you can see, there's a very extensive options for students to choose from. You are not limited in terms of where you want to focus your specialization electives. The other nice thing about this program is if you're looking at this list and you are not seeing a specialization that lines up with your specific policy goals or interests, it is very easy to work with myself and our faculty to develop your own specialization based off of available coursework and curriculum here at the university. So now that we've kind of covered in depth a lot of the curriculum, I'd like to ask Rebecca essentially what her specialization is, since she's going through completing her final electives at the moment and capstone. So I'd like to have her talk about what her specialization is, and how she selected it and how she's enjoying it so far.
So I'm doing a health policy. I picked that just because I'm really interested in health equity and health access. So this just felt like the right route to go. And most of my electives that I'm doing right now are in health policy administration. And I love working with them just as much as I loved working with the School of Public Policy. And I'm really enjoying myself. It's a lot of really good options. And I felt like I had a wide variety of ways to get where I wanted to go.
And as you were selecting these courses, Rebecca, did you have a lot of options to choose from when you went through and were picking, or did it feel like you only had a handful of classes that you could select?
No, I felt like I had a lot of options. Everything from getting more in-depth information on how to do health financing to health across the life course, a wide variety of classes. And I felt like I'd be able to delve into more specific matters that I didn't necessarily feel comfortable with my own experiences. So that I was able to really kind of bump up my skill set.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. One of the nice things is as Rebecca was saying, is there's usually a lot of class options to choose from in many of these specializations. So even when you're choosing a specialization, there's a lot of options within there to delve into specific subsets as well as you go through the elective coursework. And so for those of you today that might be attending the presentation that are current Penn State students, we do have a specific opportunity that is just for current undergrads at Penn State. So if you are a Penn State undergrad and you are in any of the following programs: criminology, sociology, political science, African American studies, health policy, or communication arts and sciences, you are potentially eligible for an accelerated master's degree program based off your academic performance. So if you are currently a Penn State junior or lower and you're here today and you are potentially interested in a career in public policy, there are ways for you to complete the program with just one additional year of coursework, as we can share classes. It's a great way to build on your undergraduate career already, and it saves students that are currently here at Penn State a lot of time and money. So if you are a current Penn State student, this might be a good program option for you. I encourage you to reach out to me to set up a one-on-one to talk about it more in depth. But that is a great opportunity that exists for our current Penn State students. So what can you do post-graduation? What kind of careers exist for students that have completed a Master of Public Policy? This degree sets students up for a wide range of potential careers. The obvious ones are local, state, federal levels of government, the alphabet soup of government organizations and agencies, nonprofits, think tanks, policy orgs, lobbying organizations, and private sector industry hire students that have a policy background. Places like Amazon, Disney, Netflix all look for people with policy backgrounds to fill not just their policy divisions, but also a lot of times their management training programs. So there are a lot of jobs in this field. It is a field that is only projected to grow. I do encourage you that if you have any questions, once again, feel free to put them in the chat. We can answer them as we go along. We'll also do a Q&A at the end. But since we are talking about careers and Rebecca is getting very close to ending her time at the School of Public Policy and moving on with her professional career, I'd like for her to tell us a little bit about her internship that she did this summer, how she found it, and then also talk a little bit about her current capstone project and how she feels those two experiences have helped prepare her as she gets ready to jump into the professional workforce. So Rebecca, if you can kind of talk to us about the internship and capstone that you're doing, that would be great.
Of course. So I did my internship with the Virginia Department of Health, and I worked under the COVID czar at the time, Dr. Danny Avula, and mostly what I did at that point was really focus on COVID health policy, kind of figuring out like why people were hesitant to take the vaccine, how we could help people feel more confident, how we could make sure that we were following all the guidelines set by the federal government and any given to us by the state, and just trying to make sure that everyone was able to have be as healthy and as careful as possible during COVID. So since communication was such a big issue that we found during my internship, my capstone focuses on how public health officials and agencies were able to successfully or unsuccessfully communicate COVID health concerns to the general public and how that was received. So that's really what my capstone focuses on.
Very relevant in these times as there's all sorts of mixed messaging that continues to come out from all sorts of organizations and industry and government on it. How do you feel that the internship and the capstone project have helped prepare you for your next steps, and also how do you feel like the core curriculum helped you in your internship and capstone?
So for the most part, I think both the work, getting my degree here at the school and having that internship kind of gave me a better idea of how to work with larger organizations on a shorter time crunch than what I've been used to. Mm-hmm. I also found that many of the courses that we had here in our first year was really helpful. So one of the classes we had focused on diversity in the workforce, which kind of helped re-cement stuff I learned in undergrad about how we can make sure that all voices are being heard in a very effective and efficient way so that the goal is met while making sure that we're not actually alienating anyone. And that was very helpful in this kind of job. Like you said, there was a lot of miscommunication. So a lot of my work focused on trying to combat the misinformation that was being given in a way that didn't make people feel like we were alienating them.
Excellent. Sounds very, very interesting. And I actually look forward to your capstone presentation later this semester. So thank you for breaking down the internship and the capstone projects and how they've helped you so far. So when you do leave this program and you do enter the professional workforce, one of the big benefits that comes from having a Master of Public Policy is obviously an increased earnings potential. So students that complete a Master of Public Policy are projected to earn around $19,000 more per year than counterparts with just a bachelor's degree that are going into the same career fields. Having a Master of Public Policy, once you are in the professional workforce, has a very broad salary range, as you can see from the slide. Reports basically have it at anywhere between 93,000 to the upper 100,000. Obviously, this is dependent on what industry you're going into. Obviously, private industry and business and lobbying all pay a little bit more than if you go into the public sector, like a nonprofit or government side of things. But there are benefits to all options in this career. And once again, it's a field that's only projected to grow over the next few years. So there are jobs out there, and there are good paying jobs available for people that have this background. So what kind of resources do we provide as the school to help you achieve these goals and get to where you want to get to? One of the big things that we have as part of the program is we have a director of professional development, Dr. Catherine Baumgartner, who works with our students through their entire time in the MPP program to assist with internship placement. She also runs the capstone course and helps with capstone projects. We also do career coaching and leadership development as part of this program. So first year students this year did a strengths assessment to understand where their professional strengths and weaknesses lied. They did individual and group debriefs on it. We bring in guest speakers on a regular basis, both to talk about career and leadership development, but also to provide students with an overview of the different types of career opportunities that exist in public policy. So we bring in people from all sorts of different backgrounds to talk about their careers in public policy. It's a great speaker series that you can actually attend regardless of whether you're in the program by registering through our website. You can also catch previous ones through our YouTube page. But since we do have so many resources in this program, I'd like to hear from both Cheyenne and Rebecca about, what they found helpful, what they've utilized. Cheyenne is as a first year student that went through the strengths assessment and is going through the internship hunt process right now. What can you tell us a little bit about those experiences, and what have you found helpful from everything that the program has in place?
Yeah, so Professor Baumgartner does the strength assessment, and after you complete that, she actually schedules a meeting to talk to you about your results. So it's not like you just do it and move on. And that's like a 45-minute conversation where we talk about my strengths, what that looks like in the workforce. She even recommended me books on Amazon to go and read more about, which was really helpful. And you just can chat with her, whether it's going over resumes or cover letters. And when I started looking for internships, I scheduled a meeting with her and told her where my policy interest sort of lied. I had like my top 3 options, and has like so many different resources. She's like, oh, I know these second year students did these ones. If you're interested, look into that company, get back to me. I'll schedule a meeting for the both of you. Or, oh, I know these organizations. I know people that work here. I can reach out to them, do a little bit more of your own research and get back to me. So she makes the internship process, at least the beginning of it, really easy, because she helps you narrow down what your options, what you're looking for, where you would like to be located at, if you want it to be paid or unpaid, what level of government you want to work for. She makes that process really easy. And so the past few months, as stressful as it might be, it really hasn't been the most stressful, just because she's there as a resource to help me. And also my first year and second year students have been really helpful too. I've been able to talk with a lot of the second years who are interested in the same policy interests as I am. They're like, oh, what did you do for your internship? Did you like it? So that's another really great opportunity, is being able to talk to my cohort and the cohort above me about what they're looking at and their own personal experiences, so I can figure out which placement would look the best for me.
Good. And how is the internship hunting going so far? I know you're in the middle of all of it at the moment, so still waiting to hear?
Yep, still waiting to hear back. I think I've applied to 10 to 15. So we're just sort of sitting back and seeing what comes up. So now just the waiting game, which is the hardest part.
Absolutely. Well, can't wait to find out where you're going to do your internship. And all of the students, when they're done with the internship, do a presentation about their experiences at the end of the summer semester. So before they come back in fall, or during one of the first few weeks in fall, we do an internship showcase to highlight everything that students have done. Rebecca, as a second year student, what have you found to be some of the best resources that the program has had to support you as you unfortunately get ready to leave us?
Yeah, it's coming up fast, unfortunately. Catherine, Dr. Baumgartner's been a lot of help. She doesn't just help you looking for internships. She also actually sends out a lot of information for job postings, and is always a really good ear if you just want to have help maybe navigating what it is that you're actually looking for when you graduate. Stephen, you yourself are an awesome source. Very good at helping when there's like issues with classes, trying to make sure that you're actually going down the right track academically to match your desires for your career choice. Every single professor I've had in this department has been amazing. You can just really tell that everyone really cares about each individual student's success and wants you to succeed. So being able to not only just feel that, but have them actually turn around and say, these are my actual office hours, but I am and will meet you for private one-on-one sessions if that's what you need. I like that flexibility, and I've always really, really appreciated the level of dedication that the faculty and staff here have for students.
Well, thank you for including me as a resource, Rebecca. I appreciate it. And Rebecca is right. And we're going to actually talk about the benefits of the faculty interactions with students here on in a little bit. So before we get into why Penn State over everybody else, and Rebecca touched on a little bit of some of that, I want to talk to you all about the application process. So our application process is pretty straightforward. We do not require any GRE or GMAT. We do a full holistic review of all applicants. So we look at your undergraduate record and transcripts, your 2 letters of recommendation, and your 1,500-word statement of purpose. This is your chance to talk to us about who you are, what your motivations are for pursuing a Master of Public Policy, maybe what your goals are from a policy perspective, maybe, what would, if there was a culminating moment that sparked this interest in you, combination of all those things. It's your chance to tell us your story. Those are the 3 things that the admissions committee reviews all applicants on. They're all weighted equally. So it's very, very straightforward. It's easy to apply. You can apply through our website, or you can apply through the graduate school's website. You can check our website for application deadlines. Our last priority deadline is actually coming up tomorrow, but we will be doing rolling applications and reviews up through June. So if you are debating, it is still not too late to apply today. And so finally, why Penn State? Why should you choose Penn State over any other policy program or institution that you're potentially considering? One of the things that we talked about earlier was the specialization flexibility. Not every program that you look at is going to have the same amount of options or opportunities for you to focus on specific topics in public policy as you're getting your MPP. As Rebecca talked about, with the ease of being able to connect with and talk with faculty, even though we are part of a large Research One institution, we are a smaller program. So it is very easy to connect to all of the faculty and staff that exist as resources for students. And as Cheyenne mentioned, it's very easy to connect with your fellow cohort members and the cohort members that are above or below you. Since we are a smaller program, everybody has very easy access to each other, and it helps make a tight-knit community that we have as part of the school. One of the final reasons why you might want to consider Penn State over other potential programs is we as a university have the largest active alumni association in the world. This is an invaluable resource from a professional and a personal standpoint. There are Penn State alumni chapters in every state, in almost every major city. and in the majority of countries across the globe. No matter where you go, once you leave here, you have an instant network that you can tap into personally or professionally, no matter where you end up going after you graduate. Chances are when you're applying to positions, a Penn State alum might be sitting on the hiring committee. There are that many alums and they are that invested in helping other Penn Staters and other policy students reach their goals that it's an invaluable network that exists here for our students. So with me talking all about why Penn State, I'd like to actually have our students talk a little bit about why they picked Penn State. Cheyenne, we kind of brainwashed a little bit early because she actually did her undergrad here at Penn State before taking a year off and then coming back for the Masters of Public Policy. So Cheyenne, since you already did a degree at Penn State and liked us so much that you decided to come back, what helped you choose this degree program over potentially other ones, and what is it that you think sets Penn State apart?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on the alumni association. That's one of the biggest reasons I stayed here, was that you always have, I have people that just connect with me on LinkedIn because they see I have Penn State in my page. There's that. I think the big one is just opportunities. There are endless opportunities here at Penn State, whether it's getting involved within the university, whether it's getting involved in clubs, internships, full-time jobs, career resources. No matter what you're looking for, it's going to be here. I took a gap year, like Stephen mentioned, and I served with AmeriCorps, and I learned a lot about education policy. And it kind of pushed me towards going back to school, which I knew I was going to do. I just wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to go. But Penn State has been calling my name for over 4 years at this point. And I did the big school kind of thing. I went to a lot of football games, but I knew I wanted a smaller environment. And through the program, I've been able to get that, and it's exceeded all of my expectations thus far.
Well, thank you, Cheyenne. I'm glad that you did decide to come back and hang out with us for 2 more years. Rebecca, as someone who didn't complete their undergrad at Penn State, Rebecca actually completed her undergraduate studies at Virginia Tech. So another state program and another great university. What made you decide to pick Penn State? What drew you to our program, and why would you recommend it to potential MPP students?
So like Cheyenne said, I already did the big school thing. Like, even though Virginia Tech is nowhere near as large as Penn State, when you take in those large number of students and faculty and staff, it's still a huge institution. And it kind of felt hard to really get a good connection with my classmates and faculty. Like, you really had to work very hard, and a lot of times you just couldn't really get as well connected as you might like to feel like you belonged with the school, or that the school was really interested in you. Here at Penn State, I've never had that issue. The faculty is always very engaging, always very interested in you. The staff's always very interested in you. Everyone wants to make sure that you're doing okay, and that you are succeeding how you want to succeed, that you're getting out of the program what you want to get out of the program. Like Cheyenne said, it's still a large school, so there's a lot of opportunities outside of academics, but I really wanted that small feeling of the school, and I got it here. And that's really what kind of drew me in.
Excellent, thank you. And since we were talking about large university and resources and getting involved in a lot of other things, I always forget to mention this. But one of the other nice things about coming to Penn State is, even as a graduate student, you have access to all of the student clubs, organizations, intramural sports that exist for undergrad students as a grad student. So if you have a specific passion or interest about things, there are lots of different clubs, orgs, or sports that you can get involved with on campus, even as a graduate student. So there's a limitless amount of opportunities that you can tap into here at Penn State. That wraps up our presentation for the day. If you do have any questions or questions, we have the answers, sorry. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A now. We'll hang on here for another minute or two, waiting to see if there are any questions. We're happy to answer them. If you would like to, you can always reach out to us via email to set up one-on-one appointments, and we'll go from there.